What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY in the overall markets. I'm going to break down some very important levels to watch for, what I see on the charts, at least developing thus far. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. Anyways, now let's talk about the markets. So looking at Tesla, as you can see, we have these nice looking structures that are developing where Tesla's getting these rejections, and we're making lower highs, at least thus far, which is a sign of weakness that's starting to develop on the chart. Now, could this be an inverse cup and handle that could be forming? It's also another possibility. For confirmation of this, we need to see Tesla lose the support to really start dipping. So that's going to be a very important support for this moving forward. But what happened to Tesla is we got some negative news, which I talked about earlier, about how in Canada, they're going to be increasing tariffs on imports from Chinese EVs, not to mention for particular products involving aluminum. So that's very, very important. The importance and significance of this is the fact that this could affect Tesla to a large extent, especially their sales. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these EVs dipping quite a bit. So that's why we're seeing the share prices dipping. As far as Tesla goes from this point on, I still think that we're barely holding support. And we're going to be watching to see if that holds. Now, the Dow has hit a new record before it started to struggle, and we're seeing the S&P 500 also doing the same thing, getting very close to new highs before coming back down. And for tomorrow, as a reminder, there's not really much data coming out. It's going to be another minor day for data. We do have some manufacturing numbers coming out in the morning, but besides that, it's going to be kind of quiet. And then for news about Tesla, I haven't really seen much going on. I am seeing some news coming out about how there's been progress that's made at the Giga Nevada semi factory. So we're starting to see the first steel beams being put up, and this is going to be very useful for at least for Tesla moving forward. So that's what we're seeing at least thus far. They're expanding the Giga Nevada, so you can see like a part of it right here. There's this expansion that's being done for that particular parts. And I think that that's a good piece of news for Tesla's long term. That's something that's still a work in progress. So, anyways, that's all I'm really seeing on the news. I didn't see anything else that was too significant. So, with that being said, what levels are we going to be watching for? As you guys know, Tesla has 215 as resistance, very close to this 50 EMA. Then 217 aligning with the 20 EMA and this white trend line of resistance that happens to be above us. Now, if we were to hypothetically end up dipping, you're going to be looking at first off 212 as support, followed by this 210 area. And 210 is going to be very, very critical. Not only do we have previous resistance there, but also this is the support that held us up from Thursday of last week. So if we lose that support, there's going to be a bigger risk of Tesla dropping down to not just 208, but possibly down to about 202 for a big rug pull. So I want to be very careful with that moving forward. Now, even if Tesla were to hypothetically get some kind of dip, just hypothetically, right? It's going to be fine because we still have a nice inverse head and shoulders that's forming. And if you really zoom out of Tesla, if you zoom out all the way, we have a giant inverse head and shoulders that's still developing. So this could still lead to more upside later on down the line. So Tesla is still going to be fine for the medium term approaching the end of the year. I think Tesla will be fine. For now, however, we're going to be focusing on the short term. And for the short term, there is a risk of downside. That's the honest truth. We got three big rejections on Tesla, right? The first one was here, second one's here, and the third one is here. And we're barely holding support. So we'll see what happens tomorrow if we end up losing critical support. And we'll see which way it breaks. So watch and see if we could hold this 210 area. If we do lose this, there's going to be a big risk of a drop. So be very careful at Tesla. I just want to give you guys a warning about that. So far, that analysis stays the same. As far as SPY goes, like I was saying earlier, it's the same thing again. We basically had this bearish divergence leading to a bit of a dip, and we're still shuffling at this 560 area. This is what I predicted would happen. That's what ended up going on. Volume is very slow. There's not really much going on. But just notes that to turn bearish, you want to see SPY lose 556. We haven't done so yet. And to be bullish, you want to see it break past 564. We haven't done that either. So we're still stuck between these ranges, but there is a risk of us dipping a little bit lower, at least later on, just for the time being to get closer to our 20 EMA, in my opinion. We're range bound, however. We're not necessarily tanking. We're not necessarily breaking out. We're still stuck within this range. And I think SPY will continue to shuffle like that. Same thing with ES. We did push higher, trying to break the high only to reject. I was thinking we'd push a little bit only to come back down. So we're still stuck within this range. 5600 is our support and 5650 is our resistance. We're still stuck. Nvidia is also stuck. Why? It's just range bound. Look at the last 4 or 5 days. It's been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. 130 is the resistance zone and 124 is our support area. We've been stuck within this range right over here for the last couple of days. So I think Nvidia is going to continue to shuffle around 126. I mean, it is possible we try to get close to 128 tomorrow, but I think we're just going to be range bound for the time being. For Bitcoin, We're barely holding support at 63,400. If we lose that, we could be dipping to the 62,500 area. And if we hold this, we could be looking for 64,000. So we'll see if we lose support or not. For the QQQ, we're looking a little bit weaker. We are still dipping, but we have this important support at 473 that held. We have resistance at 475, not to mention 477. So we're kind of stuck within this range. We could be looking for a dip if 473 were to break, and that would take us all the way down to these lower supports. This also has a head and shoulders like structure. So if that does end up breaking, I'll be looking for this imbalance to fill at least down here. So in my personal opinion, I think that there's a little bit of weakness developing on this chart as we have a head and shoulders, but we haven't lost key support yet. We haven't lost that 473 area to see a bigger dip. It has not happened yet, so we can't turn extremely bearish yet. As far as Aapl goes, we're range bound. We're stuck between 227 and 225, going back and forth and back and forth. If we lose 223.5, there's going to be a bigger dip coming. Otherwise, we're just kind of stuck. For the IWM Russell 2000, we're attempting to push higher. We're going to be looking at 222 as our resistance, and then 220 as our support. If that fails us, we'll be dipping down towards this 217 area. So we're kind of stuck right now as well. Just have to give this some time just to see how things end up developing. But overall, we're doing a decent job of trying to uptrend, at least on the IWM. It's showing more strength than SPY and the others. But I could see this retest 220. We'll be watching that very carefully. For Amazon, we're barely holding 175. If 175 were to break, we'd be looking for this imbalance fill towards 172, and we have resistance around 175 and 177. So I do see a risk of us dipping a little bit lower if we don't hold 175. So it's barely holding support, so it's looking a little bit more bearish to me. Same thing with Meta, we had a bearish divergence double top. I was talking about that earlier. I think that there's a risk of this dipping lower. If we end up failing to hold above 520, we'll be looking for basically 515 again in lower levels. So it looks a little bit more bearish to me. Microsoft looks more bearish, have a head and shoulders like structure. It rejected off our 20 and 50 EMAs. So if we don't reclaim 415, I think we're easily coming down to about 408. So it looks more bearish to me. Google's actually holding up. So now it's trying to break out of this little flag that's forming. So this is actually building a little bit of strength right now. If we hold above, if we could try to get above 168, I think we're going back up to almost 170. So we got to try to get back above 168. But overall, this is showing some strength, trying to hold up. So it's outperforming a lot of its other counterparts. So not bad whatsoever, in my personal opinion. This has strength as long as it holds above support. As far as Tesla goes, we're just kind of shuffling right now, but there is a risk of downside if we lose some key support, and we are getting a lot of rejections. So the chart is starting to downtrend for the last couple of days. So be careful with Tesla, guys. There's a risk of some downside. Even if there is downside that comes for the short term, the medium term and long term are still very bright for the company, especially as we get closer to the Robotaxi event. With that being said, that's it for my analysis. I want to thank you all so much for listening. One more thing about the markets. Just remember, there's not really any crazy data in the morning for tomorrow, so we don't have like a CPI or PCE to worry about. Most of the data that comes out will be after the market opens tomorrow, so the market has some leeway for the time being. So anyways, have a great day, and I'll see you guys very soon in just a couple of hours. Thank you again, and peace out.